Okay, welcome back. This is the very first seminar for the Randall Theater of the 55th season. So you are making history in being here under what we're calling the canvas O, as opposed to the wooden O over there, this new environment. And yes. So are there any people here at this hour that were not here last hour? A few? Yes, okay. And you're not newcomers to the festival, I know. Any newcomers here at this hour? Okay, well, just for history's sake, I'll tell you my name is Nancy Neelich. When I first started here 13 years ago, I neglected one morning to introduce myself, and a person raised their hand and said, "Who are you? And what are you doing here?" So I try to always remember to tell people my name and what I am doing here. These play seminars are here. We've changed the name of this year. You may have noticed it used to be literary seminars. Now it's play seminars because we have costume seminars, actor seminars, prop seminars, and they said, well, we talk about the plays, let's call it play seminars. So I'm getting used to saying that, play seminars. And we are here every morning of the season except Mondays, always on Sundays, never on Mondays at the Utah Shakespeare Festival. I'm here with the capable assistance of the play manager, Bailey Smith, who is invaluable. Bailey is going to be a junior at Southern Utah University. She hails from Pullman, Washington. She is a political science and theater major, and my dear friend and assistant. Thank you, Bailey, so much. So it's a real pleasure for me to welcome this person sitting next to me, has never been here before. And Michelle Rain Anderson. Melissa, I'm sorry.
Okay.
See, I've messed up too. Melissa, yes, I apologize.
No problem.
Melissa, I won't do that again. Melissa Rain Anderson. Correct. I got that right.
You got the middle name.
Oh, good. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So Melissa Rain Anderson is new to this festival, the director of Cocoanuts, yesterday's history-making production. I think that's the first time I've seen some of those things happen. And so we'll get into that in a moment. But Melissa is no stranger to comedy. I think in reading your credits, the closest non-comedy that I saw that you had directed and you got a lot of accolades for was Next to Normal. Right. However, listen to some of these plays that she's directed. Spamalot. A funny thing happened on the way to the forum. The complete works of William Shakespeare abridged. Rather funny plays, right? So she also, and I'd love for you to talk about this as we go along, was an assistant to Hal Prince for a London production, a brand new London production. So I want to know about that as well. But Cocoanuts, new to this festival, it premiered. This version, this adaptation, premiered at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival a couple of years ago. The premiere was directed by David Ivers, our co-artistic director here. Then it went on to the Guthrie Theater, South Coast Rep. It has been done. It's very popular, but first time here at this festival, and I'm so glad you're here to tell us about it. Welcome to the seminar. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'll start and then I'll send the microphone out. Why did you want to direct Cocoanuts? Why did you want to come to the Utah Shakespeare Festival? I mean, why not? But I know you have a busy schedule. And what was appealing to you about doing this zany show in repertory? A very different experience than just doing it at a sit-down theater company.
Right. Yeah, good questions, all. My husband is in the cast of the Cocoanuts. He plays Chico, Jim Poulos, and he's also in Mary Poppins. They preview today at 2. But my husband and I have a lot of mutual friends here at the festival. We started on the Central Coast of California at PCPA, worked at Sacramento Theater Company and Oregon Cabaret Theater, which is a little theater next to the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. So the lineage here, we live in New York City now, but the lineage here goes way back for us. So it was sort of just about timing. when it was possible to have an opportunity for me to direct and for Jim to be in the company. And this year proved to be perfect timing for that. So we have kind of always had it in our minds that we'd love to come and work here. So this was a great opportunity for both of us to come. I actually saw the production, David's production of the Cocoanuts at Oregon, because I was there directing another show at the Cabaret at the time. So, and I'm very good friends with Greg Kaufman, who adapted the music, Irving Berlin's gorgeous score. He did all the arrangements of that score, and so I've sort of been close to the production in a way because I got to see it a couple of times in Oregon, and because I'm so close to Greg and somewhat, close to the festival. Actually, my husband Jim did one of the first school tours as an actor with Brian Vaughn. So they did Mackers, and Brian played Macbeth and Jim played Malcolm, I think. So that I'm talking like 20 years ago. But this is our first time back in 20 years. So we're so pleased to be back in this setting. To do the Cocoanuts on our rep schedule is pretty impossible. It's really tight because the actors are in 2 or 3 shows, right? So as a director, I'm used to going in, I'm used to being the only production in rehearsal, right? So I go to a theater, I see my actors 7 hours a day, 6 hours a week for 3.5 weeks, and then we go into tech. And so it's a very compressed process. Well, here I see them 4 days a week for 4 hours a day. So that's only 16 hours a week. Now there's more weeks, but it's just spread out. And the hours are basically like 3/4 to a half of the hours that you would normally get, especially for a musical, because musicals just tend to take longer. There's a lot of timing, of course. There's 3 full days of just learning music before I can even get them up on their feet. And then there's choreography to boot. And with the Cocoanuts, the big challenge is that not only is all of that going on, and then the Marx Brothers ridiculousness on top of that, is that all of our principals are in all of the big musical numbers. So Natasha, who choreographed, and I did some of the musical staging as well, we sort of shared, it was impossible to split up rehearsals because we always needed the 4 boys in everything because they're in all the big numbers as well. So it's a really tricky schedule to sort of navigate that way to make sure that everything, gets up and gets running at the speed that I wanted it at and the precision that I wanted it at. So Herculean task. I was joking that I bet Brian's room, his rehearsal hall directing Henry V was much lighter, and I'm sure they had much more fun. Doing comedy is hard, serious, mathematic precision, and you walk out of there with a big headache at the end of the day. So, yeah.
So speaking of headaches, and you're probably not going to phrase it this way, you had a little surprise before the show opened. How long before curtain did you know about Kathy?
We really didn't know. We knew it was about a half an hour, 20 minutes, because we were rehearsing from 10 to noon, and she seemed fine, like really great, and then I got a call from Terry, our stage manager, that said, her other knee is really acting up now. And so the contingency plan was to put her in a chair in the moat, and we had to redo, lights and get a special light focused on her in the moat. And then the spot operators did a great job of sort of covering what needed to happen on stage, but also covering because the boys wanted to play with her, which I knew would happen, which is great. I mean, we had made the decision that John Porpoise, who plays Groucho, would go down and do that scene with her in the moat, because I thought, well, this is silly just to have him hanging out, alone. But of course, once that can of worms gets opened, so the spot operators had a really fun time trying to follow them all night long. But I think it really speaks to how well oiled the machine is that they were able to sort of jump back on the train regardless of what was going on. And that's exactly what I wanted. I mean, I don't want Kathy to be injured for sure, but I think that the zaniness of what we're doing and that we built a very strong train allows them to go off path and get right back on, so that we don't lose our way.
And well.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks.
There was a moment yesterday when I was, and I was aware of what had happened, but then I looked at the show and I thought, no way do I believe this is a first preview.
Really?
It seemed to
Yeah.
me, as you said, a well-oiled machine, and it's to your credit and to your team, I think. And also the audience. I've noticed over the years that I've been here, preview audiences are really, well, the rest of them are too, but particularly preview audiences are very receptive to whatever happens. I think you all know that it is still, as Scott Phillips says, a work in progress. It's a rehearsal. You have arrived the first time you have an audience, and you're just so pulling for whatever happens, whether it be and we've had a lot of unexpected things happen this opening week. But yesterday I looked at that, the scenic design, the costume design, the lighting, the sound, the actors all seemed to be there ready to go. Did you have that sense, or were you?
No, yeah, we were in really good shape yesterday. My goal as a director is always for opening night to feel like the second weekend for the actors. I want them to be that confident and that comfortable so that they're just in their run. I think it's generous to work fast and efficiently so that they can get it into their bodies as soon as possible, so that they do feel confident and comfortable. Also, it's a little selfish on my part because I leave after opening night. So I don't know. So I'd like to see the show, you know. So it works both ways. Now, in this case, I'll actually be back and I'll get to see another performance in the run because my husband will be here. But that's not usually true. As a freelance director, opening night is the end of my contract, and I fly away. And that's true here. I fly away on Friday to start another show. I will open 3 shows by the time Cocoanuts closes, because it runs through October 15th. So it happens to be a very, very long run, but that's the life of a freelance director. You're in town for 3.5 weeks. It happens to be 7 weeks here because of the schedule. And then you leave and you go on to your next gig. So it's always a process gig for directors. And then we hand the production over, of course, to our stage managers, the dance captain, to keep it tight. And of course we have our pit leader, we have our band leader on stage with them as well. So, you know, there'll probably be notes along the way to keep things, you know, as tight as it can be. And then I get to check in on the show in a month. I think I get to see it once. Yeah.
You will get the daily stage manager's notes, right?
Yes.
And you can.
Yes.
Okay.
We get a performance report after every show. And if something weird occurred, you know, they may, you know, email me and say, what do you think? This thing happened and it really worked, or this bit doesn't seem to be working anymore. There's only so much I can do remotely. I mean, generally you have to sort of trust the people that are on board then. And hopefully you have built enough structure so that it stays somewhat within that. This one's different, somewhat within that structure as you go away. And you have to trust your actors that they know what you want, you know, that you've communicated to them. I'm a big fan of a yes choice. I call it a yes choice, or a buoyant choice. Keeping the balls in the air in comedy, I think, is the most important thing. So not pulling the rug too often, not starting over, but so that you guys feel that you've gotten on the train with us and that we're just heading towards the station. And that it never really derails. If it does derail, we get right back on and we keep going. So hopefully we've all agreed upon that in the rehearsal hall, and that will continue, you know, on.
So what have you told your cast in terms of ad lib?
We do have specific places where that's actually sort of scripted in. The auction, of course, is one place where they do have sort of free reign. And there's also some contingency plans. if things kind of go off the tracks, there's some there's some moments that we can just jump to and get back on. John Wascavage, who plays Jamison, also can help us by letting Groucho know where we are, because I mean, if he's going to go off book script that much, it's hard to figure that out. Chico actually has the contingency in the script. He can jump to some language that then sort of makes us skip one of the lots, but it's fine because we just press on with the show. Because I'd rather them have freedom. I mean, that kid yesterday was so great. It was awesome. Right? Yeah, and especially a kid, you can't ignore a kid, number one. Number two, it was awesome. So Jim, who plays Chico, has free reign to go around in the house and do that. So it's and in that way, every night will be a little different. John Plumpus, who plays Groucho, has he had a lot of leniency last night because Kathy was in the moat, so he made a lot of fresh fodder there. But he does. He has a couple of places where he can definitely just go off track, and it makes a little bit of sense, and we all feel sort of safe with that. Of course, yesterday was great because it all felt like it made sense, and we were able to keep going. And we only added 3 minutes to the show. Felt like 7, but yeah.
Okay, so comments or questions from the audience? Okay.
The gentleman playing Groucho.
Mm-hmm.
Where are we in the script? That line right there, he says, okay, somebody tell me where we are. After the boy incident, he was like, okay, where are we?
That was legitimate. That was real.
I kind of thought that, but he played it.
Yeah.
He never stepped out of character.
Yeah.
And then when he was escorting Mrs. Potter off the stage,
he
had to let us know, this is what's going on. The ad-lib on this was so perfect.
Yeah.
The timing, you've done well. And the actors are to be applauded.
Great. Yeah, I'll let them know. Thank you.
And behind you.
I think he wanted to describe that physicality of getting her off stage, because it really is an exit line.
Yeah.
And that's why it's funny. But if it's just him alone, he felt bizarre just doing it alone.
She's driving what was supposed to look like.
Yeah. Yes.
I just want to make sure she's not injured for the long term.
She's getting medical care. We're really hopeful. She's actually in Mary Poppins rehearsal right now, because she's also in that show. So, it's one of those things in the theater that you kind of take this stuff an hour at a time. And there's a lot of really, people that are compassionate people that want to make it work for her. You know what I mean? And so we'll just keep making decisions.
And why did you keep her off the stage instead of in a chair on the stage?
There's so much fast business. I was worried that she would get hit, with a rolling luggage cart or a rolling table, or so we tried to keep her out of the fray. Of course, the fray came to her. She loves it though. She loves those boys. So it's fun.
So actually, we loved that too when the break came to her. When the nose dive into her lap was fantastic. So we go to Ashland every year, and Mark Vegard is my favorite comic actor that I've seen there ever. And so I'm curious about how was he involved in this production at all, or is it just the kind of thing where once he completes the script, it just goes
right? Yeah. So Mark Vegard adapted this version of the Cocoanuts. Okay, so he gets writing credit for the Cocoanuts. He also played Groucho in Oregon and at the Guthrie. So at the 2 previous productions of this adaptation, Mark, the adapter, plays Groucho. Did you see him do the Cocoanuts? Yeah. And Animal Crackers too, as well. So he actually has a lineage, I think, to Groucho Marx, to the Marx Brothers. So he's been fascinated with him. He's an amazing Groucho. He doesn't really have much to do with this production other than it's now published. So the Utah Shakespeare Festival pays for the rights, and we get to use the script. I've been in contact with him a couple times because there was a couple of things I wanted to change and a few tiny little cuts or rearrangements, just because our space is different, our cast is different, and he was up for all of that. He was totally on board for all of that. But I wanted to clear it with him because that's actually not really legal to do that. You know, Shakespeare's work we can mess around with as much as we see fit. But this is something that we've paid the rights for, and that's the script that he deems shall go out and be produced. I'm also working with Mark Vegard in the fall. I've cast him in a production of A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum. So I'm happy to be part of his artistic family, sort of, in a way. And I hope he gets to see this. I'm not sure if his schedule will allow, but he's been very generous, very kind, and very loving from afar, I guess. He's liking everything on Facebook, he's a fan.
I mentioned to Michael Barr last night after the play orientation that as a self-proclaimed musical theater nerd, I go looking for stuff that I've never heard of and try to listen to the music in advance. And you could find some of those little things on YouTube. There's no soundtrack. There's no recording. You can't buy the CD. You look anywhere, it doesn't exist. And which kind of blew me away, especially in light of today's world where things like Shuffle Along are appearing on Broadway, which is as old as this is. And yeah, I mean, there's this resurgence of the old stuff, the Marx Brothers and the Gershwins and stuff, that nobody ever gets to see anymore. And somebody does new orchestrations, and it turns out to be wonderful. And I was just surprised that the music didn't exist anywhere.
Yeah, that's a great idea, actually. So it would just take money. So we would have to raise money to do that, to go into a studio and put the tracks down. But that would be a great idea, because I think what Greg has done with the arrangements is just stunning. I mean, we know these tunes, but the way he weaves them into the script, and that was Mark Bedard's also one of his main functions of taking the old script and adapting it, is that he wanted to put more urgency into the timeline of it, so that it does feel more like a modern day musical, like there's actually a plot, and the Marx Brothers get involved in the plot, and they see need to be involved in the plot. So that would be a great next step for this version, is to get a cast recording for it. So if you know anybody who would like to pay for that, no, but that's a great idea. Yeah, sure.
Along those lines, when this was first being written, it was the second Marx Brothers show to be on Broadway, and this was in 1925. And George S. Kaufman, who was wrote the book and the lyrics, was not a fan of sentimentality, and he got a little sideways with Irving Berlin in writing this, when they were writing the music. And the song "Always," which probably is the most well-known of any of the songs, the lyric originally was, I will love you not always, I will love you on Thursday. and so they couldn't agree whether to change it to always or to Thursday. So that song didn't get in the Broadway show in 1925, but we have it now.
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys caught it, but actually Groucho does do that version very quickly. I'll be loving you always, Thursdays. He does it very quickly in the second act, as an homage to that. And also, actually, one of the bigger changes that we put into this production that was not in Oregon or at the Guthrie is the song Monkey Doodle Doo, with the trio in the moat singing doo 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 as the ushers in the moat. That wasn't in the other two productions. It's basically to cover the scene change that's going on, but it was in the movie, and they've always been the creative team has always been a fan of that song, so it was a great way to get it back in. And Mark was all for it. Greg said, well, we have this song, Monkey Doodle Doo, that's never made it in. Maybe this is the time to bring it back. I said, yeah, because I would rather cover it with a gift to the audience, rather than just try to make this scene change as fast as we can. I would just kind of rather let us take a little breather, in the true sense of those old vaudeville shows where we just took a little breather for a second and watched three cute kids dancing. and singing a song. So I think it works really well, and we're happy to have the song back into the show.
And they're dressed, did you notice they're dressed like the ushers?
Oh, yeah. The ushers. They even get name tags with their character's name.
Well, speaking of monkeys, I asked yesterday about where the monkey was on the stage. We think it was up in the Cocoanuts on the left side of the proscenium, but I don't know, where was the monkey?
I don't know about this. This is a USF tradition.
Yes.
And it's very early in the season for that to be brought up. So thank you very much. I'm not really serious about
What's
you.
the answer?
Okay, so when you come next week, when you stay on and you go to the props seminar, you will listen to our props director, Ben Homan. And I will tell you that my first year here, 13 years ago, when someone like yourself said, "Where's the monkey?" I had no idea what they were talking about. So I went to Ben and I found out that years ago, there was a production here of The Merchant of Venice. The director wanted a monkey on the stage, and Ben, being the kind of person he is, kept bringing monkeys to the director in rehearsal. Is this what you're interested in? Is this what you want? No, that isn't right. This isn't right. This isn't right. So he finally satisfied the director with the monkey, and then it wasn't used. And so as a Christmas present that year, many of Ben's friends gave him monkeys. And it's been one of those things that maybe happens to you if you once express an interest in turtles or pigs and you get them every year. So we have, I forget how many monkeys Ben has, but he decided that those monkeys needed to be in shows, that they shouldn't just be on the shelves over on Bulldog Road. So every show has a monkey in it. It sometimes is just an emblem on a piece of china. It's sometimes a stuffed animal. I have no idea where the monkey is in Cocoanuts, and it doesn't sound like you do either. So you have to come back and go to the props seminar. I thank you for the question, but I don't have an answer, and neither does the director.
Well, it's the perfect show for it. I mean, I wouldn't mind more. If I'd known about the tradition, I would have been like, Ben, bring them all out. Time. Yeah, there's still time. Do we have understudies? We do. It's an internal understudy, so it becomes very complicated and sort of a domino effect. And with the rep casting, of course, it becomes really complicated. And because it's so early in the season, it's just not really fair to the productions because we haven't quite opened yet, So I wanted the rest of the cast to get a real rehearsal, So it was because we only had about 20 minutes to make a decision as well. Well, BJ Jones, BJ Jones, who's directing Three Musketeers, he came last night. He wrote on my wall, "Keep it. It's the best idea." Yeah, right.
What is it like for Kathy to sit with a break, but for 2.5 hours?
Well, it's difficult to sit, but I think it was easier than walking and sitting and walking and sitting and walking and sitting and running. And she dances a little in 5 o'clock tea, but that was difficult for her to sit that long without icing or taking care.
But even she's used to the blocking. She's used to the moving.
But she did so wonderful. It was almost like she had a script on her. She was just like right there with them, because I think everybody was sort of a little bit hyper aware. You get kind of, as an actor, you get kind of like, oh, something's off. Let's do this. Let's tell the story, which was actually really great timing. And she was so wonderful.
She was.
So I just love her to death. I love her in the role. I think she's so generous. She offers so much in that part, So I'm hoping. Well, it was just a little difficult because she's in costume and leaking and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, next time we'll just see what happens next time. But she got some rest yesterday after the doctor, but she's in rehearsal right now. So we'll see.
Can you talk to a little bit about directing someone who doesn't have any lines? And I became a huge fan of Tasso last year.
Yeah.
And so with his natural ability to pull those faces, and how much direction and interaction did you have with him, and how difficult is it to direct someone who is in that character?
Well, the first day we started working, we did the big scene where Chico and Harpo's first entrance into the play, and that run around on the poof. And so we were working all of that office bit, all that stuff that he has to eat and play with, like kind of run away. And I was saying, okay, so great. So can you honk, and then you'll come in and the suitcase will go here. And he was like, because of course that was good for his process, right? Because he needed to really get used to that. But so that was a little, that was somewhat difficult, but I totally understand that that's where he needed to stay, for the process. But when you're trying to do something really fast and you need a yes, did you? Oh yeah, okay, he understands. But so it was great because the guys jump in. I mean, I'm really a physical director too, so all of that stuff, I love choreographing all that stuff with the poof, and I get in there on the beats and stuff like that. So he brought in a lot. I brought in a lot of ideas. We watched the movie, of course, stealing directly from the movie because the play sticks so closely to the movie. The dialogue is literally pulled right out of it. Some of the bits, of course, the leg bit, eating the sponge, eating all the stuff at the desk, the darts, all of that is directly pulled from the movie. Now, the difference is they can close up in a movie. So a lot of the work with Tasso was trying to get what he was doing and share it with you guys, because things are small and upstage, and so I wanted all of his work to be seen. So my work with him was basically just clarifying, yeah, that's great, let's bring it out a little bit or share down this way, or so but he's pretty special, because he can take a moment and just kind of flip it, and it really genuinely makes me laugh, and not a lot makes me laugh. It's very serious business.
When he started eating the telephone, I thought, I wonder if that's made of chocolate.
Yes.
Is it?
It is. So we have two phones because of all the business that happens with the phone before. It's a regular phone, and then the second one that just it's a mouthpiece, right? The mouthpiece is a chocolate mold, and we actually got those from the Guthrie because they had them and they had just done the production, and so they had the chocolate molds and they had the two phones, so we rented those. It was just easier than Ben having to create,
Because there were a lot of things that he was eating, and I thought, how edible are those things really? But
Yeah.
the chocolate was my first.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. What I like about it is that I love it when he bites it and it crunches, and you can actually hear it in his microphone, because he is wearing a microphone because of the horn. But because then it's fun because it feels like it's hard plastic, even if it gets a really nice crunch out of it. The sponge is a piece of bread. But the problem with the bread is that we put a little bit of water on it to make it a little bit moist for him, but it tends to dry out by the time we get to the scene. So that's a whole calibration of like putting it in a little dish. It has some little water, and now it's too soggy. Crumbs are going up. So that kind of stuff. The inkwell, of course, is just water. The flour. So Ben has a mold for flour, and it's like a candy flour that he can eat. But the phone is probably the best trick. Oh, the buttons are there's some kind of candy, like a spree candy, crunchy candy that gets gold, that gets edible gold on it, and then they just stick them right onto it. And there's only two; the rest of them are real, but they just made them. They look almost exactly like those buttons. Yeah.
So Melissa, the backstory of this character, why does he like to eat everything?
Well, I think it was something that he could do silently. It was one of his bits. The thing about the Marx Brothers is that what I love about this show is that they just go into the bits. They just go come latsies or bits of business. they say yes and in the true tradition of sort of improvisation or clowning. The minute one of them has an idea, they just go for it. So for an example, it would be Harvey calls them, let's get away from this bum. And Harpo goes, and Chico goes, bum, bum. And Groucho comes down, and they all just go, and they go into Spirits of 76. So they know, they just have like little visual cues that they just go into these bits. I think the character, he developed things that he could do without talking or making noises, of course. And so eating was one of the things that was just ridiculous enough that he could do without honking his horn, because that, is one thing. Yeah, he's hungry. He eats everything. Yeah, I don't know how it developed, but.
So you didn't have a long philosophical discussion.
Well, we got into it, but it's like you spend so much time on the history, and really we should be rehearsing the bits, because it is really interesting, and their lives are totally interesting, and they happen to be popular right at the time when talkies started to come out, and so they could do movies. The Cocoanuts was their first movie, because they were for the most part, they were a verbal troupe. They're a verbal comedy, so they were on Broadway, but they were also filming. So they were on Broadway and they were filming the movie in Brooklyn all day. And they weren't big fans of the Cocoanuts, the movie, the Cocoanuts. They loved animal crackers. But if you watch those old movies, like the paper is wet because they don't know how to not make it crinkle. Mm-hmm. The sound was just catching up to them. But yeah, we could get lost in the history of the Marx Brothers for a long time, but we kind of did that on our own and would bring in ideas. Yeah.
I have another history question. From somebody who's directed a lot of musical theater, people talk about there's musical theater before Showboat and after Showboat, and then there's musical theater before Oklahoma and after Oklahoma, because those were the game changers. And the reason that Showboat was the game changer was it was allegedly the first time that the songs actually went along, told a story, that the songs and the story actually went together and there was a real story. But I look back at this stuff, and this certainly isn't Ziegfeld, which was all just like what we would now call a musical review. I mean, not all the songs support the story. Some of them are just thrown in there, and they're great. But it certainly looks like the songs, to some degree, support the story, and there's definitely a story.
I would have to say that that's this adaptation. So that's Mark Bedard, Greg Kaufman, and David Ivor's work on this particular adaptation of this piece, because the original is much more like an actual vaudeville show where dancing girls would just come out and do a number, and then suddenly we're back to singing a Berlin tune, and then we're into a vaudeville sketch, and there's a very loose plot about a necklace, but it doesn't intertwine as wonderfully as this adaptation does. So that's why I think it's special, because we're getting all the juice from vaudeville, we're getting all the Marx Brothers comedy, and we're getting a great Kaufman farce, as well as a musical comedy and a romantic comedy with the Berlin tunes. So, keeping all those plates spinning at once, it's different than a modern day musical, but it has the sensibility. So it keeps our brain and our heart attached, I think, as we go along.
Do you think that, for the most part, the jokes they will resonate with a contemporary audience?
Well, I think the Marx Brother humor is about quantity. This is
If you throw enough at it's going to stick.
It's quantity, not necessarily quality. So my MO in directing it was to just have them keep going. And what you saw, if you saw it yesterday, it worked really well, because there was a nice rumble of laughter underneath what they were doing, but you never feel like you're really missing anything because another one's coming around the corner, right? But if we stopped for all of them, the show would be 7 hours long. So I think the way that it works is literally we just keep throwing darts. And I find it, what's funny is the pickup after. So, because Groucho will land something and he'll push right through and go, anyway, and he'll pick up and go on to the next thing. And that rhythm, when they get into that rhythm, is what I find funny, not necessarily the actual joke. Now, we do have actual jokes in the show. So, like, one of them is when Polly asks Jamison where Mr. Hammer is, oh, he'll be up soon. He always gets up Wednesdays. That's a joke. So you have to kind of go through and identify, nope, go through that, go through that, go through that, go through that. We're going to have to hold for that. So that's a big part of our job too. And you guys help us. That's what we need. We can choose about, I have a pretty good track record of understanding what I think an audience is going to laugh at, but you guys, are an integral part to. I wish we had more previews actually. For comedy, it's necessary. We were dying in the last couple of run-throughs before an audience. I was like dragging people, come, sit in the house. We need feedback.
So you said a minute ago that it's hard to make you laugh.
Mm-hmm.
I find that surprising.
Well, because I think I'm thinking about why is that funny? Oh, if you put the teacup down first, I'm always in my head about that. So I tend to laugh at like sort of weird in between weird things that nobody laughs at.
So what kind of an audience are you at a show you're not directing?
I'm a good audience. I come in to laugh. If I'm not working, I'm pretty good. Yeah, I try not to work when I'm off, but yeah.
A couple of years ago, we had noises off here.
Yes.
Which involves a lot of running back and forth between rooms and doors and whatnot. And I'm curious if you think that the door room scenes opening, did that go as you wanted it to, or do you need to fine tune that? Just seems to me every once in a while, person sort of didn't quite get in at the right time. I'm just wondering what you thought of how that whole.
It was really hard to rehearse because we don't have the set in rehearsal. So we have just gotten that. We literally have just gotten that in working condition, like within the last day.
Wow.
So yesterday morning, we spent a lot of time on that right before they went on because the doors weren't working the way that they needed to in order to make it work, So we have what you do when you're rehearsing a farce is there are rehearsal doors, but they're never quite the same and they're not really sturdy. And if you're slamming them that hard, they're going to move. You know what I mean? And so what you do is you say the lines. You say, my father, 1, 2, 3, slam. 1, 2, 3, slam. So you actually choreograph it to beats. The problem is that everybody is on a little bit of a different track because if you're on one side of the door and opening it and going through, it takes a different amount of time than if you're on the other side of the door. You know what I mean? So that takes a lot more precision. So to tighten up, yeah. So we might get it on Tuesday morning. We might not. That's our last rehearsal. We'll see. It'll get better as they go. Yeah.
Final comment down here.
Sure. I'm gonna go over to pick it up. Then we could see everything.
Will you describe just a little bit how different the scene would be where, because the lady was down in the chair, how different that would have been when he dropped all the money all came out and.
Well,
that wasn't supposed
right.
to happen, I'm guessing.
Right.
But it was so hilarious.
Yeah.
That
was great. So basically, the purse comes out of Tasso's sleeve. She is sitting, actually. So they hug her. Oh, would you rather have, she says, I have the check all written out, or would you rather have cash? Oh, you have 2 kinds of money? And they do a little bit of a hug around her and actually do make her sit in a chair. So some of it was the same, but it just happened that when Tasso took the purse out, that everything fell. So they were picking things up and trying to cover, and lying on top of her, trying to, because once something happens, of course, they just want to go towards it. So usually it's cleaner than that, but it's just a little, yeah. But it was great that she had the purse. They figured that out at intermission. They were like, oh, she has to have her purse. There's no way we can't do this whole bit. So I was glad that they brought that out for her. Yeah, so but it's actually a really cool sleight of hand thing because they do this little circle and Tasso gets it into the coat, and then we see that he's got it, which is also fun. But then we don't see where he puts it. So then he kind of sort of births it out of his sleeve, which is really, really fun for the audience to see because we haven't tracked it to that point, which is nice. And then of course he gets it again, at the end, which is fun. Yeah.
Okay, final comment over here.
The gentleman that brought up the door scene brought something to my attention, the cup scene. And how was that choreographed and getting all those folks to get those cups going in the right direction and slamming them down at the same time? I thought that was pretty well done. Did you have some issues with that?
No, the trio pretty much almost already knew it, I think, knew how to do cups. There's a couple different versions of cups, so that was a discussion about which version of slamming down and hitting and works with the rhythm of that particular song. But we started early because that's sort of the 11 o'clock number. We started cups choreography whenever we could in another room if we weren't using them to get people on board. So Chris Mixon, who plays Hennessy, and Melinda Perrette and Harvey, they all get to join in on the fun with that, which is kind of cool to see, the entire company doing cups. And that's Greg Kaufman's idea. And they did do that at Oregon and at the Guthrie. Just a kind of sleight of hand. The Marx Brothers played so many instruments. So it's kind of a cool, now Chico, my husband, actually does play the ukulele and he played the xylophone. He also plays piano, but to bring a piano out on stage is a little difficult. So it's sort of an idea that comes from, if you don't have an actor that necessarily plays an instrument, there's another way to go about this. But I loved the idea so much, and I like the ensemble feeling of it, that I said, let's go for that. And also, he can play instruments.
So it was great execution. I think we'd all agree on that.
Great.
Yeah, I like.
Cool.
So, Melissa, you have 3 shows after this. Where are they and what are they?
I go to Stages Repertory Theater in Houston to do the world premiere of the new Wonderettes. So there's a 4th version of the Wonderettes. I've directed all 3 of them several times, and I've directed all 3 of them at this theater that I'm going to in Houston. So Marvelous Wonderettes, Winter Wonderettes, which is a Christmas show, and then Caps and Gowns, which is their graduation show. The new show is called Dream On, and it takes place in the 60s and the 70s, 70s being a new era for us with the Wonderettes dynasty, as I like to call it. But I've been working with these ladies for 6 years because the first version we did was in 2010. So it's the same cast. And we've done 4 shows together already because we did the Christmas version twice. So this will be our 5th production together with them playing their same roles. So that's really exciting. And Roger Bean, who wrote, you guys might know of him, he has a history here at the festival. And he directed Marvelous a couple seasons ago. He'll be there with us because it's new. So we'll be working on it. It's pretty much, he thinks that, it needs a lot of work. I don't. I think it's in really, really good shape. So they're there right now actually learning the music. I'm already late. And then I have about 2 days off. And I come here to visit my husband, see the show. And then I'll go to Arkansas Rep to direct another production of Spamalot there. And then I have about a week off, which is nice. And then I go to Jiva Theater Center to direct A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum with Mark Vegard starring as Hysterium. And then I have a couple weeks off, and then I go to the Denver Center to direct A Christmas Carol. Yeah, so.
All right, well, we're very happy that you came to the Utah Shakespeare Festival. I think you've got a hit, would you say?
Oh, yeah.
So hope to see you again here before you leave.
Yep.
And I hope to see all of you again. We are here tomorrow morning to talk about Three Musketeers. The director will be here with us, B.J. Jones, and 10 o'clock hour to talk about Mary Poppins. And I hope that you will spread the word. And the gentleman that wants to know why there aren't more Henry V visitors here, I expect that the word will travel and he will tell all of his friends to come. And I hope the rest of you do too. Thank you for being here this morning, and enjoy the rest of the day. And be sure to go visit the Summa Museum. It opens at 10 a.m., open until 7:30 tonight. Thank you all for being here.